My friends, every single day someone comes to me and tells me that they have been unsubscribed from my channel without their knowledge. Please make certain that you are still subscribed, and if you have not subscribed, please do so in our ongoing fight to stop corporations from destroying our myths. We need your help. Thank you. When it comes to Star Trek, CBS has failed in every single way except one: hiding the truth about Star Trek. CBS regularly trots out interviews with staff members, phony announcements of projects that aren't really happening, like the Section 31 TV show, the Captain Pike show, Star Trek 4, and then when that didn't happen, Star Trek 4 again, a handful of animated shows. Picard is supposedly renewed for Season 2 already, and they claim Star Trek Discovery is renewed for Season 4 long before Season 3 has even aired, which is laughable given the information that I'm about to present to you. Not unverified rumors, but cold hard facts from perhaps the greatest authority imaginable when it comes to data, Google. Google Trends doesn't lie, and Google Trends is telling us that Star Trek Picard is a spectacular failure. Using the Google Trends research tool, I did a little experiment this morning. I ran 3 search terms into the tool, which essentially compares the number of searches for each term on Google, the biggest search engine in the world, comparing the number of searches for each term across time. Essentially, Google Trends is a map of popularity, a diagram of the public's interest in a subject. And here's the cold, hard truth of how popular Star Trek Picard really is. Let's look at the numbers. The day that the first episode of Star Trek Picard released, all 3 terms hit their highest point of interest. That's the moment when the world was interested in Star Trek Picard and were going to give it a chance. And CBS blew it. After the first episode, as you can plainly see, interest dropped radically. That's not what you want to see if you're a bigwig at Viacom CBS. Ideally, you'd like to see people intrigued with your first episode, excited about watching it, talking about it in glowing terms and spreading the word so that more and more people are Googling it to see what all the excitement is about. But instead of that, you can see from this chart that interest in Picard plummeted right after its premiere. Google Trends is a very pure way to chart user interest in search terms as a percentage over time. Rather than presenting hard numbers, it offers researchers a relative comparison of popularity over time as a percentage running from 0% interest to 100% interest. I ran the numbers for 3 terms in my comparison just to be certain: Star Trek, Star Trek Picard, and just simply Picard. I did not use any capital letters since most people are lazy and don't use capital letters when they use Google. Across all 3 terms, we see the same story. Interest in Star Trek Picard, and Picard all peaked the day the first episode of Star TP premiered on CBS All Access, hitting 100% on the relative chart of search term popularity. And after people had actually seen the first episode of Picard, the interest plummeted. Interest in the term Picard, which was absolutely the most searched for term the day of the premiere relative to these 3, dropped from 100% interest almost down to 25% interest, an almost 75% drop in interest in the show. And coinciding with the premiere of the second episode of Star Trek Picard, the interest level at its height in the Picard search term only rose to about 47%. In other words, of all the Google users, and let's face it, that's most of humanity, after the premiere of the first episode of Picard, the Picard search term dropped 53% between episodes 1 and 2. The reasons for this drop are obviously less clear, but this is what I've been told by my sources. So while these numbers that Google Trends present are hard, cold data and are as factual as it gets, please regard the possible reasons why Star Trek Picard is a failure to be subjective and speculative. Now, according to my source, Star Trek Picard hit the sweet spot of ultimate fail out of a schizophrenic approach to their demographics. CBS has spent the last 2 to 3 years essentially alienating longtime Star Trek fans. Bizarrely, they have doubled down and tripled down on insulting Star Trek fans with idiotic writing, canon violations, and direct trolling. Remember the Tribbles cereal commercial, anyone? Now with 100% more human DNA in the Tribbles? Little girls eating Tribbles, hair and all, whole, joyously indulging in genetically engineered cannibalism? Way to show fans you love and respect Star Trek, CBS. What a great job that was. In essence, CBS abandoned any pretense of caring about their longtime fans, looking to appeal instead to Generation Null viewers with loud, stupid action, ugly, brutal visuals, and obnoxious political posturing. Geeks and fans of sci-fi were clearly no longer wanted as Star Trek fans. CBS was purging people with taste from their audience. They were culling the nerd. But now, this has finally bitten them in the ass, and viciously. According to my source, Star Trek fans are not liking Picard because it's obviously not Star Trek, as it continues writing for dummies, abuses the character of Jean-Luc Picard, and ignores yet again key points of Star Trek canon. And Star Trek Discovery fans are outraged because they think that Star Trek Picard is too much like Star Trek, which they hate. Pandering to boomers, it doesn't. And moving much too slowly for these attention-deficit, sugar-huffing, tweet-addicted, non-player characters that serve as stand-ins for enlightened human beings these days. Trekkies hate it because it's Star Trek, it's not stupid enough, and it's too slow for them to focus on. Star Trek fans hate it because it's not Star Trek, it's stupid, and it's dull. Congratulations, CBS! This is what happens when you think you can swap out Star Trek fans for people who don't actually like Star Trek. Another reason that interest in Star Trek Picard dropped after the first episode premiered? People saw Star Trek Picard. Nothing kills interest in a bad show quite as much as seeing it. As Variety reported, Star Trek Picard is nothing like Star Trek The Next Generation. They admitted it in print in an article with Kurtzman himself, and now that viewers have seen Star Trek Picard, they have verified for themselves that this isn't Star Trek The Next Generation. And that guy over there on the screen, whoever he is, isn't the Picard that fans wanted to see, which is par for the course. Kurtzman and his band of what I laughingly call writers seem to view it as a badge of honor never to give Star Trek fans what they want. You want to see Spock again? Okay, but we'll make him Mikey Spock's bitch. Make him emotionally disturbed, give him dyslexia, and make the human stepsister he never had the mostest importantest influence on his life ever. Want to see the Enterprise? Sure, but first we'll fuck it up and take one of the most iconic designs in science fiction history and warp it into an ugly parody of itself. You're welcome. Apparently this never give fans what they want philosophy worked its magic again, and that's another reason why Picard, Star Trek, and Star Trek Picard are in decline as search terms, according to Google Trends. As further proof, I find it fascinating that between January 31st and February 1st of this year, CBS posted the first episode of Star Trek Picard on YouTube for free. Now, remember that for the first episode of Star Trek Discovery, CBS aired the premiere episode on CBS itself, a primetime network premiere. They rolled out the red carpet for Star Trek Discovery when they were as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with optimism as a squirrel cavorting in the daisy fields of a Mass and Gildouche commercial in May. So how did that work out for them? Apparently not very well at all, since CBS opted not to do a primetime network launch for the highly anticipated return of Jean-Luc Picard in brand new Star Trek episodes. I mean, what pop culture event could possibly be bigger? If you're confident that this is the course correction that you needed, if you believe that Star Trek Picard is an outstanding addition to Star Trek lore and the shot in the arm this moribund franchise needs, why not give it a network premiere, just like you gave Star Trek Discovery? The answer is simple. If they put Star Trek Picard on national television, we'd see the ratings. Once Star Trek Picard aired nationally, there would be no hiding the ratings behind a paywall, which is the only thing that has allowed CBS to save face all these years. The only thing that keeps people from laughing in their faces every time they post some silly piece of propaganda about how successful Star Trek Discovery is on their own websites, like comicbook.com. The Emperor's lack of clothing would be far too apparent under the harsh scrutiny of the Nielsen ratings. Fortunately, we have something even better than the Nielsen ratings now. We have Google Trends to capture hard data on the actual interest of actual human beings around the world in Star Trek Picard. And the evidence for Star Trek Picard being a failure is damning. CBS wouldn't risk putting Star Trek Picard on network TV because the ratings would be publicly visible and they presumably suspected that it would not be well received by the public, a suspicion that Google Trends supports. So when CBS offered the first episode of Picard for free in what I personally believe to be a desperate attempt to bolster Picard's plummeting popularity, a brief bump in search engine interest, and then the decline continued for all three terms. Look at the data. It's like the EKG of a cardiac patient. They applied the shock paddles on the 23rd, the heart started beating again, but sadly, there really isn't much will to live left. The lesson here, never cull the nerd. The nerd is what keeps you going in dry spells. Geeks are the ones who love your show enough to make fan websites, buy merchandise, write fan fiction, do cosplay, and keep the flame burning in between series and seasons. And when you cull the nerd from your audience, all you have left is this. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha.